Hi everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today our presenter, the Head of Professional Services, Giles Garnett, will be showing you how to convert your LinkedIn connections into paying customers in 4 simple steps with Dux-Soup. Me, Jen, the Head of Customer Support, will be answering your questions via live chat. And at the end of the webinar, as usual, we will have a Q&A with Giles. So let's begin.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon or good evening to you wherever you may be in the world. And thank you once again for joining us in the latest of our series of Dux-Soup webinars. My name is Giles, as Jen just mentioned, and I'm Head of Professional Services here at Dux-Soup. And you just heard from Jen, who is our Head of Customer Support. And as you may or may not be aware, I've been presenting these webinars for around 3 years now. So you're probably quite familiar with me giving you this sort of information. Now, today we're going to focus on something that many people forget about, and that is your existing first degree connections. We're going to be looking at how you can hopefully convert your existing connections into customers by harnessing the power of LinkedIn with Dux-Soup. And while I'm presenting and talking, as always, please raise any questions you have via the question box, and Jim will do her best to answer those that are applicable. Any that are appropriate, I'll try and answer at the end of the webinar as well. So do keep your questions on topic for the whole audience. As always, the webinar is being recorded and will be made available to you in the coming hours if you registered, and via our website and YouTube channel in the next day or so. So very briefly, and I always do this, especially for webinars which cover both Turbo and Pro, what is Dux-Soup? Just in case there's anybody new here who's not familiar with Dux-Soup. So Dux-Soup is a Chrome extension which helps you to automate your lead generation activities in LinkedIn. It works by mimicking human behavior on the platform and gives you the possibility to harness the power of LinkedIn by automating such actions as auto visiting, sending connection requests, sending emails, and even endorsing skills. Really important that you select the list of prospects that you want Dux-Soup to process, and then you choose your action and get Dux-Soup to run against that. And it's really important that the human behavior elements, that Dux-Soup is designed to mimic human behavior. And that's how we try and keep your account as safe as possible. So, on to the main topic of today, first degree connections. Now, virtually every conversation I have with people who need support with their lead generation activities starts with, how can I build my network? And if you're new to LinkedIn, of course, this is completely and utterly understandable. However, there are a huge number of people who have a considerable number of first degree connections, and they basically get forgotten or ignored. So we're talking today about the possibilities for engaging your first degree connections in order to look at how you can engage with them periodically and hopefully make sure that you're not missing out on potentially high quality leads. After all, at some point you've put in the effort to connect with these people, or vice versa, and you really shouldn't neglect it. So how many first degree contacts do you have? How do you reach out to them? Do you ever visit their profiles? And with Dux-Soup, we can really automate a lot of these activities to simplify the process and make it repeatable to improve your chances of converting. Yeah, so don't forget that you have this fantastic pool of connections. First things first, finding your first degree contacts. So you can simply carry out a search in Sales Navigator or regular LinkedIn and add the appropriate filters and get your list of first degree contacts based upon your search criteria. Alternatively, you can go to your the link that we see there, your first degree connections, and you see a chronological list there of your first degree connections. So you have these places to go to find them, and that's the most important thing. How do you find them? And then what do we do with them once we've found them? And this is where we can harness Dux-Soup. You basically, as I see it, you've got 3 options. Option 1 is to periodically visit your profiles, visit your first degree connections. That's just a plain old visit to them, and of course, every time you visit them, you tap them on the shoulder. You've got the option to periodically send direct messages during an auto visit, and both option 1 and 2 are available if you've got Dux-Soup Pro or Dux-Soup Turbo. So sending direct messages out to your connections there. And the third option is available if you've got Turbo, and that's to enroll your first degree connections into campaigns. So all the way through, you can always have all of these options available to you. And One thing to make use of as well is the Dux-Soup tagging system. That means you can stay organized and track what you've done in the past. Let's go into each of these in a little bit more detail. So the visiting of your first degree contacts. You basically get your list of first degree connections based upon your search criteria. Make sure you check that criteria, check that box that says first degree contacts only, and then just make sure all you're doing is auto visiting those profiles, and you get Dux-Soup to do that, and Dux-Soup will just tick its way through that list. We'll demo all of this in a little bit as well. Optionally, you can also tag the profiles as you do it, so you've got traceability. When did I go out and reach out to these people? What did I do? And every profile you visit, as long as your visibility settings are set correctly on LinkedIn, of course, will get a notification that you visited them. And that may trigger a visit back, a reciprocal visit. A lot of people forget about just visiting profiles. It's something that really can add value and help with your level of engagement with your first degree connections. So that's option 1, visiting, and that's available in Pro or in Turbo, of course. Option 2, the second option, is to send a direct message. So again, we start with our list of first degree connections, and then we use the auto visit option, making sure we got our direct message populated to our first degree connections, and then those who are on that list get that message. At the same time, we tag the profiles so you know when you carried out the action or what campaign you used or whatever your method of labeling you used, and then use the skipping options, falling over my words, skipping options to make sure you don't send the same message twice to the same people. So here on this example here, I've got a message in the bottom left here, which I've populated, and then I'm going to tag everybody with growth hacking. Then under my skipping rules, I'd say, well, if they've already got that tag, skip them. And then in case I accidentally come up with the same people on my list when I go out further into the future, I can then also make sure I don't send that message out to those people there. So those are our first 2 options, both available in Pro and in Turbo. Now we look at the third option. This is a Turbo only option, of course. And this is to enroll your prospects, your first degree connections into a campaign. So you define your campaign in the Dux Dash, so you'd build a campaign, and I've got one, just a brief outline of one here with 3 follow-up messages there. Then you find your list of first degree connections, either in LinkedIn or Sales Navigator, of course, and then you just enroll however many people you want into that campaign. Now I've just labeled this one for example sake, just for first degree connections. If you enroll a first degree connection into a campaign, all that happens is that the follow-up messages get queued up straight away as soon as that enrollment happens. So therefore, you can basically build out a campaign and just enroll all your first degree connections, and then they will get those follow-up messages. And of course, Dux-Soup listens out for people who respond, so it stops the campaign after that stage, of course, by default. And then you just need to monitor those responses as they come in via the Dux Dash. So all of these possibilities help to sort of broaden the chances of you engaging positively with your existing first degree network. And as we're doing all of this, of course, we tag. We use the Dux-Soup tagging options to make sure that we're, let's say, got traceability. So we would tag the profiles as you send out those connections, as you send out those messages or carry out those visits. Use the skipping rules to avoid duplication. You can also use the history skipper to make sure you don't accidentally visit the same profiles again and again and again. And then you've got the search by tag to retarget the same contact potentially. There's 2 different interfaces for the search by tag, of course. Now we've got a version which is the Pro version, which you can see here on the screen. There's a slightly different interface if you're using Turbo as well there. But this is a really useful and powerful thing to do, because the worst thing in the world is sending the same message out again and again to the same group of people, and then it just looks like you've made a mistake, shall we say. So those are the things that we're going to cover now in the demo. How do we find our first degree contacts? How do we search and tag, etc., etc.? How to auto visit, how to direct message, and how to enroll into a campaign. So let me just now pull up my LinkedIn page. For anyone who's new to any of these, or maybe you haven't reached out before, please feel free to send me a connection request message. This is me on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to engage with people who are using Dux-Soup. make sure you put Dux-Soup in your message, because then I know how you found me. Otherwise I get just random connection request messages from people and I don't know where they've come from. But yeah, feel free to connect if you haven't already. It's always good to exchange ideas. So first of all, how do we find our first degree contacts? Well, if we're in regular LinkedIn, we could just go to My Network and go to Connections. This is the place where you get the chronological list. But this isn't ideal. And the reason it's not ideal is because this is an infinite loading list. The further we scroll down this list, the more that loads. So it's one of those slightly awkward places to use as a search. What we could do better is go to the search box here. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do, let's look for operations manager, just because I want to have a keyword in there to relating to whatever my particular campaign or outreach may be associated to. So I've got operations manager. I want to make sure it's a people search. It has to be a list of profiles, remember, for Dux-Soup to recognize it. There we go. And now to make sure that I'm only targeting first degree connections, I click on my connections and I press my first button there for show results. And now I can see I've got 290 results here who fall under the bracket of operations manager, and they're all first degree connections. And that's fantastic. So I could now, I've got several options now. So we'll go through each of those 3 options, and we'll also, if we've got time, look at Sales Navigator as well and how that might be different. So if I just wanted to go and auto visit these profiles, I would click on my Dux-Soup icon and I go to my options. I'd make sure I turned everything off. So I'm not going to send any message. I might want to maybe tag them with perhaps, where are we? We're in September, aren't we? September 22. I might want to tag them with that, for example, and then I know when I last visited them. So I've got that set up. I would, of course, go through my throttling, etc., make sure that the planner was all active, go back to my list here, and then just say to Dux-Soup, right, just go and visit these profiles. And each of these people would get that little tap on the shoulder that I visited them. Fantastic, really straightforward to do. And of course, you can visit potentially hundreds of profiles a week, depending on the type of LinkedIn subscription you've got, of course. But certainly you can be visiting at least 100 profiles a day, even with a free account. If you've got a Sales Navigator account or Recruiter, you can be visiting 500 plus profiles a day without any problems. So that's just visiting. I've lost my mouse. There it is. There we go. So now if we think about messaging, so we want to reach out. This is with Pro as well. So we're only looking at Pro things at the moment. We've not got onto the campaign stuff. So if I wanted to now reach out to these people with a direct message during that auto visit, again, click on my Dux-Soup icon and I go to my options. And this is where I say, right, I want to send them all a growth hacking message. So I'm going to give them a tag, which is growth hacking. So I'm going to enable that one as I visit them. And I've actually already populated a personalized message here. It's got absolutely no bearing on what that search result is. It's just purely for as an example here. So here I've got a direct message here, which I could send to these people with a few links in it, and bits and pieces, just an outreach message, which of course I would build relevance to my audience. I'd send my personalized message here. And the really important thing here would be to make sure, yeah, I'm tagging them. And then I also want to make sure under my skipping options, I'm skipping them if they've already got that tag. I want to make sure that anybody who's already got that tag doesn't get this message again. So you could use a campaign message or a date stamp or anything like that. That way you can always have that check to make sure you're not going out to the same people. So I would then, yeah, I've enabled those bits and pieces. Of course, I check on my throttling limits here, so I can see here I'm visiting them at a random speed. I can send up to 150 direct messages a day in this case based upon these settings, but you can of course change that here. And then I would go back to my list here and I'd say to Dux-Soup, okay, go and visit those profiles. And during each of those visits, these people will get tagged with growth hacking and they'd get my outreach message. Always start at the top of the page and just run its way down accordingly, following all of the normal rules of Dux-Soup behavior. So that's how I would then run my outreach by messaging. If we now think about the campaign side of things, so if we're now thinking about Turbo, and if anybody's not familiar with Turbo, we've got lots of information on the website. We've got lots of previous webinars. We've got lots of blog posts about Turbo. In case you're not familiar with it, we click on our Dux-Soup icon. If you've got Turbo, you go down to the Dux dash here, and this is where you can then go in and build your campaign. And in this case here, I've already built a campaign which, let's see if we can find it here. I've built a campaign which I've labeled first degree campaign. So here we go. I've got a campaign here. Here I've got a 3-message campaign, which is going to go out over a period of 50 days. So the first one's going to go a day and a couple of hours after enrolling the person. 2 weeks after that, they'll get this message, which is a bit more information. And then my final one there, 35 days after that. Now you could of course extend this campaign out further and further. And a recent change means that you can actually now delay you can build your campaign. There used to be a limit of 100 days or 99 days to a campaign. Actually now you've got a limit of 999 days. So if you wanted to add a message here, which goes out, for example, a year afterwards, you can now, well, even 365 days in a year, there we go. You could send another message out after a year, for example. So you can actually build out an entire campaign. 12 messages or 11 follow-up messages in a campaign can be delayed for up to, coming up for 3 years. So you've got that possibility now to really build out an extensive campaign, enroll people into that, and just leave it. So here I've got my first degree campaign here. I've got my my 3 follow-up messages here. Now with Turbo, you can also here, we've got this option here to tag profiles with the campaign ID whilst enrolling. So I can click on that button as there, and then I've got that enrollment there as well. And the other thing to remember is you can never enroll somebody into the same campaign twice with Dux-Soup. So if you've enrolled them into a campaign, if once I've enrolled them into this first degree campaign, I can't enroll them again into that campaign. I can enroll them into another campaign subsequently, but I can't enroll them twice into this campaign. So you don't have that fear of duplicating the effort with Turbo, which is really quite handy. So here we are. I've got my campaign set up here, just for first degree contacts, connections. I've now got a couple of different options as to how I enroll my prospects here. So here, for example, I could enroll people one at a time. So I could, let's do it because I'm not going to send anything out for a day or so. So I'm going to enroll a couple of people here into my campaign. There we go. I've got that way to do it. Or indeed, I could do the bulk version here and do enroll profiles, select my campaign here and say, yeah, I want to enroll, I don't know, 30. And what it'll do then is it'll take the first 30 people in I don't know, let's not go that many, let's just do 15 for now because it's on one page. It'll enroll the first 15 that it finds that haven't already been enrolled into this campaign. So if I press that, I do okay. And then what we should see then is that it'll, if I've got the planner active, I didn't check that, it'll then just enroll the first 15 who hadn't previously. So the first 4 have been enrolled into that campaign, and then the subsequent ones after that will then get enrolled. The first 15 will get enrolled into that campaign. What we can do then, because I've now enrolled some people into this campaign, I can now go back to my Dux dash. If I have a look at my queued activity here, what I can see here is my follow-up messages have been queued up. So there we are, to my tomorrow on the 21st. My first follow-up message will go out to those 4 people. And then 15 days, I think it's 15 days after there we are, I've got another message to go out. And then subsequently, I've got yet another message to go out there. And if we go back, maybe we'll see it actually now enrolling some more people. So there we are. It's skipping the first 4 because they've already enrolled. And now we see it's enrolling subsequent people into that campaign. So what I'm doing here is just taking my list of prospects, enrolling them, and just letting it go. And all of this outreach will then just get queued up, and then Dux-Soup will send out those messages. And of course, Dux-Soup also listens for the responses. So all I then need to do is go back to my Dux dash and my funnel flow here. If this to load, oh no, I've already loaded it up, I think. There we go, I loaded it up. You see here, people that I've enrolled into this campaign. Of course, I'm not sending out any invites because these are first degree connections. Then if I just refresh this, we should see the next lot of people that I've now enrolled into this campaign as well. Wait for this to load. It takes a little bit of time. So there we go. There we go. Wrong one. Let's go back to my first degree campaign. There we go. That one there. We'll see here exactly how many people I've now enrolled into this campaign. And yeah, the messages will be queued up. They haven't been sent yet, of course, but as and when they do get sent out, I'll then see the follow-ups starting to rack up here in the stats here. And of course, this is now going to take a little bit longer to load because I'm watching it, and there's 100+ people watching it as well. So please talk amongst yourselves whilst that data loads. There we are. So yeah, it's now done the enrollment here. If I now go back here, there we are. So I've now enrolled, 23 have been enrolled here now. If we go down here, we can probably see some of those people that I've just enrolled accordingly. Yeah, I think Adrienne was one and Andrew was one. Yes, yeah, so there's various people here that have now been enrolled into my first degree outreach. And that's how straightforward it is with Turbo. With Turbo, it's so easy to do this. And I've just queued up, you can see here, let's go to my queued activity, all of these, basically all these commands here to be executed in the coming days as and when the timestamp gets hit. Definitely slowing down a little bit now. Come on, it's going to load up in a second. Let's try that again. So those are the really easy ways to do that. The other thing I mentioned about was tagging. So we've got the tagging here, and of course, remember, there we are. There's my queue now. So you can see here I've got all of these messages due to go out tomorrow, which was my first message, and then my subsequent messages after that. Now with Dux-Soup Pro, you have a search facility, of course, where you can do your tag search and run Dux-Soup from there. Within Turbo, we have an alternative, slightly different tag feature here. So here, if I take people, for example, who I've tagged before against a certain tag, what we see here is I can now run Dux-Soup from here in the future. So if I had a campaign and I tag people with a certain campaign, I want to then reach out in the future with the same tag to the same group of people, I could then run Dux-Soup against this list. It's very similar in Pro. You click on the Dux-Soup icon and press the search by tag button, you go to a different, the old menu, which was the one that was on the slides, and you can of course run Dux-Soup from there as well. So you can always then sort of build campaign upon campaign upon campaign and constantly reach out to the same people. So all of these different methods are ways to get your first degree contacts to engage. The basics still remain. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Make sure that you have relevant information in your LinkedIn profile. If your homepage, if your LinkedIn page is not up to date, it's not got relevant information, people will not be drawn to engage with you. You have to keep this information on this page up to date and relevant to the people you're reaching out to. Don't be afraid to change your headline sometimes. Now I've got this headline here. I've got a few people I work with on a regular basis who, depending on the people they're reaching out for, whether that's maybe they're going through some recruitment activities, they'll put some information in there regarding that. Don't be afraid to change that, because every time somebody gets that notification that you visited them, they'll see that tagline. And if you're visiting people for a certain reason, then if you've updated your tagline relative to that, then that can make it very, very useful. Make sure that's relevant, and make sure that your content of your messaging, of course, always has to be targeted towards your audience. There's no point in, for example, sending out an invite to a growth hacking conference, for example, if you're searching for chefs or something like that. I don't know. Make sure that there is a link and a reason to reach out to people. Don't just reach out randomly. Make sure there is value to your messaging. So that's really important as well. So let's go back to the slides a second. So the summary of what we've talked about. Don't neglect your first degree connections. They are an incredibly powerful potential resource. Even if it's sharing posts, I've got a couple of people I've worked with recently who are actively, if they post something, they then put that into their first degree outreach message. Share your information, share your posts, make sure because that gives you more traction as well. The more things get shared, the more people will see it. Make sure you do reach out periodically, whether that's just with a message or just visiting. It's such a missed opportunity not to do it. Be organized. It's really important. Be organized. use the tagging, develop a process that's repeatable. So you've got traceability. You can see where you've been, who you've reached out to, etc., etc. And then use Dux-Soup to automate it, all the auto visits, the direct messages, and even the campaigns with Turbo. I think it's a really powerful combination in that respect. Very quickly, in 2 weeks' time, our next webinar, we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite topic, LinkedIn limitations. It's a question that comes up regularly, and we've not touched on it for a while, so we decided it's worth revisiting this. And it's talking about, different strategies you can use when you're using LinkedIn, so you don't have the handcuffs on you, if you like. Trying to make sure that you maximize the possibilities that are available to you on LinkedIn, and making sure that you are staying within the fair usage limits that LinkedIn, of course, prescribe. I've talked enough for now until now. Now, Jin, do we have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. How does this work with the Sales Navigator? Does it run the same way as on regular LinkedIn?
That's a really good point. I didn't have time. So yeah, it works exactly the same way to whoever that question was from. So if I just do a quick Sales Navigator, I'm very conscious that I often demo in Sales Navigator and forget regular LinkedIn. So today I've done it vice versa, but gone too far, of course. If we just go into Sales Navigator and we look at our lead filters here. So for example, here, if I just click on my lead, my connection filter here, and I just look for first degree connections, I can now see all of my first degree connections, 2,500 or so. And I can run Dux-Soup directly from here in exactly the same way as before. So I've got the enrollment issue option here, of course, and I've also got the options here to visit profiles. Run it in exactly the same way as you would from regular LinkedIn. Of course, you have the luxury of all the additional filters here. So you can use the keyword filters, you can use all the company filters, the roles, the workflows, etc., etc. One thing I didn't mention, make use of the history skipper as well. So if you're doing the visits in your skipping rules here, you've also got the history skipper here. So make use of this. Depending on what your outreach is, depending on the frequency of your outreach, do make use of that history skipper there. So yeah, Sales Navigator, Sales Navigator, it's exactly the same as regular LinkedIn. Remember the pop out here on the side, the widget, only works in Turbo. That's only available to Turbo users and only works in search results. So in a search result here in Sales Nav or a search result in regular LinkedIn, if I had a lead list, I don't get this pop out. So just remember that. It's something that a few people sometimes forget.
Last question.
Yes.
Second and last question. Does campaign stop if a prospect replies?
Yes, that's a good point. And your funnel flow, we go to our funnel flow here. Of course, Dux-Soup is monitoring for responses. If people respond and you've got the default settings, and I say the default settings being exclude blacklisted profiles, because a blacklisted profile is someone who's responded to a campaign. So here, your responded population here, they don't get the further messages unless you hit the reflow button. So if I just click on that responded box there, you have the option to go in here, check what their response is. They may have just put a thumbs up. They may have told you to go away, in which case you want to not send them any more messages. But you may want to, of course, hit the reflow button. It's taking a little bit of time to respond today for some reason. But yeah, you have a reflow option there if you want them to continue to receive those follow-up messages. But the default is once they respond, they don't get the subsequent follow-up messages. So that's something to bear in mind as well. But that's all documented on our support pages.
Also, with the reflow, you need to be careful to reflow the profile before the follow-up was scheduled to be sent, so that people don't be missed.
In a timely manner, yeah. So basically, so say for example, I have like my campaign was one day they get the first message, they get the first message tomorrow, and then the next message was 2 weeks afterwards. Those messages stay in the queue if they respond, and as long as I do the reflow before that 2 weeks is up, they'll still get that message. If Dux-Soup has processed that message in 2 weeks' time, I'm too late. They could still get the third message, but it may not make sense if I've done it then. But you can also go in and under your queued items, you can always delete messages as well. So if you think, yeah, I want to make sure I don't send that person anything, whether they respond or not, you can actually go in there and delete do a search by the URL and delete things. One thing to actually, that's something that I discovered the other day, was if you enroll people into a campaign from within Sales Navigator, messages get sent from Sales Navigator, from the Sales Navigator mailbox. If you enroll them in regular LinkedIn, they go from the regular LinkedIn mailbox. This is for first degree contact. And then it depends on what platform your target's got as to where their responses come. But Dux-Soup, of course, checks both mailboxes. It checks regular and Sales Navigator for those responses. So if you've got Sales Navigator, do keep an eye on both mailboxes, because, yeah, we don't know what your target has got. Dux-Soup doesn't know what mailbox your target has got. So just be aware that there are, that those two mailboxes to manage. Anything further, Jen?
Thank you. That's it from me for today.
Cool. In 2 weeks' time, how to avoid the LinkedIn account restrictions, making sure we keep your account safe. Then we've got loads of blogs around this. We've got loads of information on our blogs. We're constantly updating and reviewing and testing, of course. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to share some further valuable information with you then, as the sun starts to get in my eyes. Sorry. Yeah, that's it from me. Technical and booster sessions, of course, you can always book those via the websites if you need one-to-one support and consultancy, basically, to help you get along the way with your lead generation activities and Dux-Soup on LinkedIn. I will say thank you and goodbye, and hand you back to Jen, and I'll speak in 2 weeks' time to you all.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Giles, and hopefully we will see you during the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.